After years of an admittedly frustrating inability to secure a hit piece, to get smeared in the pages and on the airwaves of America's finest or lowest propaganda publications, I think I have finally made up for it, maybe even with a little extra too, because getting at least a nickname out of a federal indictment is another notch many of my more accomplished colleagues have yet to achieve. One of those pieces was a brief profile segment in USA Today by reporter Mary Walrath-Holdridge. Covering the personalities formerly on Tenet Media, she described some of my more recent work as calling Kamala a communist. I didn't just call her that, though. She professes the ideology, at least in the context of food, which is where it always starts, exactly as it did in Venezuela. Kamala wants state control of the marketplace under her own plan. In her own words, she wants equal outcome, regardless of personal achievement, talent, or even effort.
It has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more. So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. That often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. To put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy.
That is not me calling her a communist. That is her describing her own communist ideology. Mary says I accused the Democratic Party of abortion propaganda. Again, I didn't just accuse, I substantiated. Abortion, of course, is a primary focus of the party's campaigns, to the point of promoting it, often under false premises. In the video of mine that Mary is describing, there's a scene with Kate Cox at the DNC, a woman who has made several false claims about her battle with the Texas state government and Donald Trump's non-existent effort to ban abortion federally, and the crowd cheers, at least in part, specifically because she got an abortion.
Trump didn't care, and because of his abortion bans, I had to flee my home. There's nothing pro-family about abortion bans. There's nothing pro-life about letting women suffer and even die.
And lastly, Mary says I made an anti-immigration video based around the, quote, now largely disproven claims of a Venezuelan gang taking over Colorado apartments. Though again, even at the time of that video's publication 2 weeks ago, largely disproven was already a dubious characterization. At the end of August, the people depicted in the viral video from Aurora, Colorado, were confirmed by the Department of Homeland Security as members of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang. The family that shared that viral video described the terror of living among this gang. Another witness to the gang's crimes said the gang claims to, quote, run the apartment complex. Another witness described hesitation to speak to police because of fear of gang retaliation. And the night before I posted that video, Aurora police announced the arrest of a man nicknamed Cookie, a Tren de Aragua gang leader in the area for exactly the sort of behavior USA Today reporter Mary Walrath says is, quote, largely disproven. A shooting in one of the affected apartment buildings. So what exactly is disproven about my discussion of this story? You'll notice she didn't actually quote anything I said. She just wrote, oh yeah, he said that the apartment building is taken over, but that's false. Just like she wrote, oh, he said that Kamala's a communist, and oh, he said the Democrats do abortion propaganda, all of which are easily defensible with the truth. But it is very clear what Mary did here. She just looked at the thumbnails of 3 of my more recent videos, decided that she disagrees with the thumbnail text, and then wrote a cheap article smearing me and moved on. I guarantee she did not watch even a second of my videos. The reason she doesn't provide a quote to dispute is because she didn't even bother listening to them. And by the way, if you want to see those original videos, they're now banned off YouTube, but they are still up on Rumble, so I've linked them in the description. But that's the thing about lazy, ideologically driven reporting at the expense of the truth. Eventually, the truth catches up with you. A very interesting development happened on Wednesday, less than a week after Mary's USA Today reporting, ironically disproving her characterization of the story as disproven. The city of Aurora, through the mayor and a city councilwoman who's been monitoring and working on the problem, released a public statement with the full endorsement of the city manager and the Aurora Police Department, announcing they have identified 10 and arrested 8 confirmed members of the Tren de Aragua gang involved in criminal activity at these apartments in recent months. The statement confirms that the Tren de Aragua criminal activity has significantly affected these apartment properties. So to believe reporter Mary's largely disproven characterization, you have to deny the reports of resident witnesses and victims, you have to deny Homeland Security sources, and you have to deny the understanding of Aurora law enforcement and city government too. Perhaps Mary will soon inform the residents and the leaders of the city that they are wrong from the perspective of her New York apartment that has no connection to the story and can't be bothered to consider any of the evidence. But maybe that is a somewhat unfair characterization. Maybe she just made a mistake. Maybe she's unaware of this new evidence. Sure, she said the story was largely disproven, but if shown this new development, maybe she'd change her mind. So I emailed and tweeted Mary on Thursday night, "Hey Mary, you called my discussion of the story, quote, largely disproven. But now the city of Aurora is acknowledging the point. There have been numerous arrests of confirmed gang members committing serious crimes at these apartment buildings. So will you be retracting your false claim? Will you be correcting the record? Will you at least be updating your readers with this relevant new information in the story?" And Mary responded, claiming that city statement doesn't actually say what it says. She said, No, Matt. The statement actually says the police department and local government have repeated that there is not an issue of gangs or one singular gang, quote, taking over the city or overrunning apartment buildings. In fact, don't read what the city leaders said at all. Read our characterization of it at USA Today instead. So just shifting the goalposts. My original video was about documented criminal activity at this apartment building. I never claimed that the gang had taken over the city. That's a new point with which she's now arguing. And if she disputes the claim that the apartment building is overrun with gang members, well, that's just a question of degree. 10 gang members minimum are doing a lot of damage, and besides, it's not my characterization that the apartment building is overrun anyway. It's the characterization of a resident who lives there, working with the city councilwoman who was part of that city statement. So of course, I have to follow up. Mary, there is no plausible way to read the statement to say that there is not an issue of gangs or one singular gang in Aurora. The city statement specifically identifies Tren de Aragua and describes them as a problem at these apartments in particular, within the city generally, and even regionally too. If it's the taking over the city claim that you dispute, that was not a part of my video that you called disproven. If it's the overrunning the apartment building claim that you dispute, that's the word that you chose. I did not, and you didn't quote me. Besides, that is the word choice of a witness who lives there. Why are you telling him that his own experience is largely disproven? What was the purpose of your article, Mary? Was it actually to find the truth, or was it just to write something hasty to smear my name and then get off to the coffee shop? Completely twisted up, trying to say that the city statement doesn't actually say what it says, and shifting the goalposts to something completely different that I never said, and refusing to engage with the evidence from the people who live there and the arrests of the gang members tormenting them. Mary, of course, then made herself the victim of this situation. And the truth itself, without the facts or any honest reasoning to support her, Mary then said that the tweet I posted asking her to retract her false claims in light of the new information was an attempt to get my followers to personally attack, harass, and bully her, so she will not be engaging with me further out of concern for her safety. For anyone entertaining the idea that I harassed her, she made this claim after I emailed her twice in a back-and-forth conversation, not 100 times unanswered, twice. Much more importantly, though, the absolute disconnect from the truth is gigantic. At no point did I make any threatening commentary. I'm posting the full email exchange with personal information redacted for you to evaluate if you doubt me, linked in the description. The tweet I posted was the same question. Now, it was pointed, sure, but pointed at the facts, not threats. and totally without any encouragement of harassment toward her, which didn't even happen anyway. In fact, the tweet got hardly any traction. Indeed, she responded to that tweet initially in a professional way, but then decided later, once it was demonstrated the facts were against her, that actually that one singular tweet was a threat. And so she privated her account. If the tweet was threatening, then why did she respond to it initially as though it wasn't? Because it wasn't. But most importantly, if asking her about her reporting and holding it accountable to the truth is bullying and harassment, then what exactly did she do to me? She implicitly called me a liar in a national newspaper without asking for my side of the story. USA Today's reach is far greater than mine. So by her own reasoning, how is she the victim of harassment and not the initiator of it? But it's not about me, of course. Not only am I not threatened or even worried about her lying about me, I take pride in her smear on me. It's a career accomplishment to which I've long aspired. So thank you, Mary, sincerely. It's about the truth and the American citizens actually suffering because of it. And a national reporter at a national newspaper not only totally unconcerned with that reality and what it means for those American citizens, but outright rejecting it and calling herself a victim, as though there's a gang coming after her. Mary directed me to her editors, and so I emailed them too. I asked them 3 basic questions about their reporting process. Number 1, my work was characterized as disproven without quoting it or asking me for comment. Is that standard practice at USA Today? Number 2, Mary has declined to update her reporting with new facts that call her prior claim into question. Is that standard practice at USA Today? And number 3, when the new information was brought to her, Mary accused me of bullying and harassment, saying her safety is now at risk. Is that standard practice at USA Today? To make claims about someone and then call that person a bully if he responds pursuant to the facts. And her editor confirmed to me that he stands by her reporting, which I will take as an affirmative answer to all 3 of my questions. But the truth is, as much as I dislike the original reporting and think it demonstrates laziness and ideological bias at the expense of the facts, or both, Mary and her editors had a very easy out here. If either of them had responded simply with something like, wow, that is new information I had not yet seen, I guess that does raise some questions about the way that we described it. Thank you for the follow-up. We will be evaluating and determining next steps. I probably would have still discussed the story because it is the truth that matters, not her personal connection to it, but they would have looked much better and performed much more professionally. Because sure, mistakes happen. I've published things that I've later regretted and even sometimes had to outright retract. That is totally understandable. Just stay aimed at the truth at all times and correct course when you deviate. It happens. Mary and her editors did not do that, though, now intentionally. Instead of confronting the new facts in good faith, Mary doubled down on her original mischaracterization. She said that investigators aren't saying what they're saying, and she made herself the victim. And her editors explicitly stand by it, which tells you the intent. It was always to steer you toward a particular conclusion, regardless of the evidence, the facts, or the truth itself. It was always to get you to dismiss this story as insignificant, no matter how compelling the story becomes. The intent was never to inform you. The intent was to frame your opinion to get you to believe that there is absolutely nothing unusually bad happening in Aurora at all, and that Matt guy is a kook for saying that there is, no matter who else joins him, government officials, witnesses to crime, or anybody else actually connected to the story. Mary just sat down last week to whip out the cheapest possible content in the quickest possible way to say, that guy's bad. What's the easiest way I can make him look bad? Who cares what consequential truth for the American public I gloss over or totally mischaracterize to do it? That was it. That was the intent at first keystroke, and by their own statements, that remains the intent now. And so, in the spirit of truth and accuracy, I'd like to issue my own retraction, actually, and acknowledge my own false assumption that this reporter and her publication were ever interested in anything other than their own propaganda in the first place. Because there are many paths toward the truth and honesty in this situation. They choose the propaganda path against all options otherwise. That tells me very clearly what they're trying to do. But hey, none of that is actually any big surprise anyway. It's just another episode in a nearly infinite sequence of the exact same thing. All we can do is to stay oriented toward and faithful to the evidence. So we should do exactly that. As one clever listener responded to my apparently bullying, threatening, harassment tweet with reference to Mary's professional self-description that I noticed, like her smear on me, contains no actual specifics to verify, the exaggerated claims of her award-winning journalism are actually largely disproven. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on X, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are live on Wednesday and Sunday nights. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.